All right, what's up everyone? This is Don with Third Creative, and this is the walkthrough tutorial video for smoke alarm, baseball, and softball Photoshop template. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all of the layers, all the processes, and hopefully cover anything and everything that you might need to know in order to create the best images possible with this design. Before we get started, if you're watching this video before May 1st, 2025, there is a little bonus that comes along with this template. So let's talk about that. My good friend Howie McCormick is a template designer as well as an amazing photographer. He has a website where he offers Photoshop templates, Photoshop brushes, and other digital assets that are very useful. But this particular template, I used his magic smoke brush to create this foggy, hazy smoke effect that you see here. And Howie was nice enough to offer kind of a promotional discount to anyone that purchases the smoke alarm template. Ordinarily, his brush is $45, and I would have to say worth every penny. But for a limited time, if you purchase smoke alarm, you will receive a discount code that will take $20 off. So you can get it for 25 bucks. It is an absolute steal. There'll be a link. There's actually a link on my website on this product page for smoke alarm, so you can get to his site from there. But also, he has a YouTube channel with lots of great tutorials, and on your PDF file, if you were to purchase smoke alarm, you would get linked to both his YouTube and his website. So you can see his website here. He's got some templates, but if you scroll down, you want to go to the For Photographers. So I guess you would land here, go to For Photographers. You can check out everything he has. He's got some really good stuff, but you'll see this smoke brush right here. So once you add it to cart and go through checkout, enter your discount code, and you'll get the Howie hookup. So now that we've covered that, let's jump into this. As always, I recommend that you familiarize yourself with any template that you're working with. So to do that, you can go through these folders and just kind of turn them on and off and just see where everything is. Helps you kind of navigate and find things a little quicker. For this design, what I would suggest, because I've got a lot of features here or layers here that you can change colors for to make everything blend, some in the foreground, some in the background, I would come up and turn off these. You don't necessarily have to turn off the streaks. You can if you want to, but turn off these blue layers that you see here, because when we start off in this background folder, I feel like when you start with this template, you want to start with the background color, and then you would fine tune these other ones, to match. And so with all of these foreground fog being blue, if I leave those on and I start changing things with the background color, then you get a weird mixture of colors, and it's not really what it would look like eventually. And I think it makes it, harder, to get started. So in this background layers folder, at the very bottom, you have your background color. Very simple. Double click in this little box here, and you can use this spectrum here to pick any color you want. Now, if you want a less saturated color, you can come more to the left. If you want it more saturated, you want to hang out over here towards the right. If you want it brighter, you can come up, but I will warn you, you start to lose some of the contrast between the smoke and the background, and so you lose detail. So I will say it's probably not the best design for something super light and bright. If I start to come down, you can start to see what I'm talking about. So you want your background to be just a little bit darker, and your smoke and your fog will stand out. Let me back out of that. I'm going to come up here to the subject folder where you place your subjects, and we'll open that up. I just want to talk about this real quick because I think I'm going to kind of do like an actual demonstration of changing the colors. So this layer right here, I added it just now. It's not in the template. All it did was change the colors of anything that was cyan or blue. So I made her uniform green. I did it quickly, so it may not be perfect, but just for a visual so we can change the colors from the blue that is the standard that it comes with to this green. Well, I guess it's gonna only apply to that because it's in the folder, so that works. But we have our sample subject image. Obviously you would turn that off, delete it, replace it. I left in a sample contact shadow. If I zoom in here, you can kind of see if I turn that off. So this is something you would replace yourself, but I left an example in there so you can kind of see. I used a soft black brush just to create a little bit of contact there. This next layer is it's just a soft round brush, kind of scrunched down. I've got the opacity only at 50%, so you could raise it or you could reduce it. You can duplicate it, so if you want to create ground shadows for multiple subjects, you can right click and duplicate the layer, or hold down Option on a Mac and just click and drag to make as many as you want. So that is an option, but that is reusable, so you can scale them. You can make them taller, narrower, wider, or narrower this way, make them fit your subject. But this should be pretty close and get you something to work with to start off. So now that I've kind of explained that, we can jump back here to the background. So what we want to do is make something that's going to work with this green. So I'm going to come in here and kind of find a green that I like. It's maybe somewhere right in there. I'm not going to make it brighter or darker or less saturated. More than likely, you're not going to have to change anything in this window. It's more about the color, unless you want completely desaturated. Then you can come over here. But we won't do that. Oops, lost it. We can get it back. We'll go with that right there. Okay, so now we've got our background color, and instantly it already has done a lot of the work for us. Next, we have a layer that's turned on by default, which is the softball batter's box. So a lot of you probably already know this, but the batter's box for a softball field is different than for baseball. And so I wanted to make sure we cover both. So if you're doing softball, you'll leave this on. If you're doing baseball, you want to turn off this one that's yellow, and the one directly above it you can turn on, which is baseball. So you have those options there. Now I have them set to overlay, and so it's going to blend with the background color that you have selected. You won't get the actual natural colors. Like if I were to open this up, you can see the natural colors and what we're working with. So saturation's completely desaturated. I adjusted the levels a little bit, and I have it set to overlay. So that's how that works. Next we have our background fog layers, and I did these in a lot of separate layers, and I did not merge them. They are all set to overlay, I believe. Yeah. And so you don't actually have to change the color of the fog and smoke layers. They are set to overlay blend mode, so they will just automatically apply that blend mode to the background color that you've selected. So really not much to do there. You can always adjust the opacity. You could come in here and turn on some or turn off some and experiment. If you want a little bit different look, you can reposition, rescale, but more than likely you'll just leave everything alone there. Here we have some vignettes, so this is going to darken the corners and the edges a little bit. So if I turn those off, you can see everything brightens up a little bit. It doesn't draw you into the subject quite as much. But it's up to you if you want to leave these on or if you want to adjust them or turn them off. But if you want to adjust them, you can either play with the opacity of either of them. This one is an exposure adjustment layer, and then this one is levels. Levels boost the saturation a little bit if you make it darker, but you can double click on these icons. Should bring up your properties window where you can play with these sliders if you feel like you need a different look, but more than likely that won't be necessary. And that's everything that is in the backgrounds folder. Let's jump up. We've got our team name text layer, so we'll open that up, and that's basically everything right here on the right hand side. So you can move this around. You could put it on the left side and bring this over here. You could make it, go straight across above. You really have options, but going through the layers, we've got subtext. So that's this right here that says Windthorst. You should already know how to modify the text, but if you double click on this T and the little icon here, it'll highlight your text, and you can change it. Now you might need to, it should stay centered, with this text as it is right now, but if you have a different team name, you might have to position it, center it yourself, which you can move it around. I have the kerning, or the width or distance between each letter, pretty high. It's set to 2000, so depending on what you put in here, you could increase this value right here in your character panel to increase the distance between each character, or you could reduce the value if you want to reduce the space in between each character. To change the color, very simple. If you double click, you should get a little box up here at the top. Otherwise, if you have the layer selected and you're on your character panel, you'll see you get a little box right here. You can change it to any color you want. Very simple. That applies to all of these text layers. There's no gradients or anything clipped to them. They're just solid colors, standard text layers. So here we have our team name. This is kind of a long name. So if you have a shorter name, you might need to adjust the size of it a little bit. So for example, if I type in Hawks, obviously that doesn't take up near as much space, doesn't quite look right. So you could come up here to your character panel and increase the overall size value. I'm going to click on one of these corners, hold down Shift, click and drag again just to scale it up. You can click in the center here to position it how you want it, but find a nice balance between the size and then the length of your team name so that it fills up as much of this space as possible without coming too far towards the center. You just want to make sure that you can still read it enough. It's okay if your player overlaps it, as long as your player isn't covering it up too much. So that's how that would work. And let's see, we'll keep it like that. Sport name, actually let me jump back. This team name, if you wanted it on the other side with this layer selected, you can come up to Edit, Transform. If you do 180, it will flip it like that. We'll undo that. If you want it to be horizontal, you could do 90 degrees counterclockwise, and then you could do something like that. So you have some options there. Sport name, very simple, softball or baseball. You just want to scale it to line up with the width of your team name. You don't have to, but that's kind of how it was set up and how I think it would look the best. So you want to scale and position it how you think it will look good. And we have the year here, which you just need to change the color. Everything's very simple. Let's take a look at, we already talked about the subject layer, or subject image folder, excuse me. The one thing I didn't cover is if you don't want to show feet, there is an option. So let's talk about that. I'm going to come back down to this background folder, and I'm going to turn off the ground layer. And then if we come up right here, choose ball options. If we turn that layer off, we'll lose the playing surface and the balls. And so now you'll notice there's a layer mask on this folder and it is disabled. You see the red X. I'm going to hold down Shift and click on it to enable it, or you could always right click, and this is disable, right click, enable, either way. And so this will activate the gradient layer mask that I have here. Now I would scale and position my subject a little differently. Scale her a little bit larger, maybe put her over here. And if you were to do that, you would probably want to reposition this. You could scale it up or down, something more like that if you don't want to show feet. So that is an option, and that's how you would go about that, which if we can get back, let me turn this surface back on here. All right, so feet or no feet, that's totally up to you. There is options for both. I do have an exposure adjustment layer clipped, and basically there's a gradient mask so that it only applies towards the lower feet. So if you turn that off, you can see it brightens it up quite a bit. And so if you may have enough natural light fall off on your subject images where this isn't necessary. It might make it too dark. But if not, you can leave it on. You can also adjust it. Double clicking here allows you to control how dark it is. So that is up to you. If you want to adjust the layer mask, which actually I should talk about that with the subject image as well. If you need to adjust this layer mask, there's a few ways that you can do it. If you have it on, if you click on this little chain link here, that will separate the layer mask from the layer. So I can just adjust the layer mask. Now, a quick and easy way is probably to just click on this little anchor here and drag down, drag up. You can do it that way if it works, but if you need something a little more precise, it's not too complicated. With the layer mask selected, if you go to your gradient tool, which looks like this, and you make sure that you're working with black to white, white to black, one of these two, it's very simple. You can just click, which I always do it backwards. I'm going to grab this other one. Click and drag and adjust it. If you want it to come lower, I hold down Shift to keep it straight up and down. And let's say you like that and you move on, and then you decide, no, I don't like that. I want to come back and adjust it. You should be able to, let's see, if I go back to the gradient tool, you should be able to see these and adjust them. But if you don't, you just start over. So I could start over like that. And it will just overwrite whatever gradient mask you had previously. It will just replace it. So it's pretty simple, not too complicated. Let's get back here. I think I'm going to disable that again. And the same thing applies to any of these gradient masks. So whether it's on this darken lower legs layer, or this next one that I have, which is a lower body color. So if you want, you know, it gets darker, I feel like there's a little bit more light spill. If you want, you can turn this on. It was set to blue, but I could come down and set it to a green, and you kind of see what it's doing. It's set to a soft light layer. So I picked the green. You can turn it off, turn it on. It just adds a little bit of color down here where the light fall off is supposed to be. Nice extra effect that is optional. Let's see, choose ball option. So let's look at this. Real simple. Yellow is softball, turn those off. This gray is baseballs, turn those on. Each one is in its own layer folder with its own layers, you can see. So if you want or need to move them, which is very likely or possible, you can do that. So let's say if I have my move tool selected, it will show me which one it is. So you can find the one that you want to work with. That one's a little bit big. I can turn them on and turn them off to see which ones they are. So let's say that one, because it's over the subject folder, it would overlap and that wouldn't look right. And so you can move them. Now I hold down Shift and move side to side so that it will help you keep it on the same level, because they are, I tried to scale them as realistically as possible. So if you were to bring this down, that wouldn't look right. So keep that in mind. If you bring them down or up, you need to make them smaller or larger so that scale and perspective remains realistic. Hopefully that makes sense. That's it. Just pick the ball option for the sport that you're working with. Now I have a levels adjustment on here, which you can see if I turn that off, it's very subtle. It's a little darker, a little bolder if I turn that off. If I turn it on, it decreases some of the blacks just a little bit, which this anchor here in levels, also you can see with this value, I have it at 5 instead of 0, so it reduces the blacks a little bit. But if you need to adjust the contrast of these balls for any reason, you can use these sliders here to fine tune it, but that is optional. I just felt that it needed it. It was a little bit too bold. Next we have a color cast on the balls. So it was blue, so if I turn that on, that doesn't look right. You can see it's really showing up in these side highlights. So we'll go ahead and pick a green. Now you might decide that it doesn't really need it, which in this case it may not, because the background color is relatively close to the actual color of the ball. But you can also come over here to reduce. If you want it darker and bolder, you can see what happens when you start to move around. So it's another way to adjust the color and the contrast to help blend with your background. I'm going to leave it at that and just kind of see how it looks as we go. I can come back to it. Next we have our lower fog layers, which you can change color with the color overlay. So this one, you'll see down here, it has a color overlay. Let's turn it on. It's blue and it doesn't look right. So this color overlay here, if you double click on it, it will bring up your layer styles panel, and you can see this box here. This is where you'll click to get your color picker, and you would want to find the green that looks good. So this is kind of yellowish. You could go that route. You could go more true green, and it's all the way up here at the brightest. You could come down and make it darker if it's a little bit too much, but you can fine tune it how you want. So I'm going to go somewhere in here and we'll keep it. Now another option you have is to reduce opacity. It's at 100, so if you feel like it's a little bit too much, you could reduce the opacity slightly and fine tune it how you like it. Another option that you have is to open this folder up, and you will see that we have 3 layers in here, 2 of them on, 1 of them off. These are the fog layers that I have in here, and I have them set to, have them set to 50% on both. So if you want even more, you could increase the values of the opacity on these. This bottom one here is extra heavy lower fog, which you may or may not want, but it's in there if you just really want to turn that on, if you're trying to hide those shadows a little bit, or if you just want that real heavy smoky foggy look, you can turn that one on. They all have color overlays, so if you wanted to control them independently, you could. You would just turn this one off, but otherwise you can just use this one color overlay and set it to any color you want that looks good. Next we have a lower foreground color overlay. It is another one that's optional, but as I was making the sample images, I thought it kind of helps. So if I turn it on, it's set to blue. It's not looking too great with blue, so it's just an extra level of color, which I don't know that it'll always be necessary, but it's there to help tie everything together. So you can see, turn it off. Kind of looks good without it. With the blue, it looked good with it. It is set at 50%, so you could reduce the opacity or even increase, just depending on how much you want. It's there if you want to use it. I think we'll use it and maybe go with something like that. Next we have our streaks. So we'll turn that on. By default, they are the yellow to kind of match the softball color and the text here. But if you want to change the color, it's very simple. Click on the color overlay. Maybe you want white. I don't know. You can use this to go with any color that you want. So that is up to you, but that's how you would change the colors there. If you open them up, it's the same. You could turn this off on the folder and then control them independently by turning on the color overlays on each independent folder. Each independent folder is for one of the streaks. So this bottom right is labeled. You could move it around. You could scale it up if it'll scale up, or you could scale it down. So if you really want to play with those, you can. Inside you'll see this one only has one, got a little motion blur on there, but the rest I think I have two, and they're basically the same, overlapping, because I wanted them to be a little more prominent. But yeah, there's 4 of them. You can scale them, you can move them, or you can leave them as they are. You can control the color independently, or you can leave this one on and control all of them just right here. Next we have our player text. Let's take a look at that. So if we open it up, first name. I have this script font. I've been doing this a lot, but a lot of my favorite fonts that I just think look the best are not always commercial free. This one is called Bayshore. It's not expensive. I think it's $18 currently at creativemarket.com. I love this font for signature script look, and that is what is in here by default. So there'll be a link for it in your PDF file. If you're not interested in paying $18 for a font, that's totally fine. I put an alternate in here, so you can just turn that off and turn this one on, and you can go with this route or any font. You can find your own signature font, any font that you want. It's completely interchangeable, but of course I like to give you at least one, if not 2 options, which I've done here. Very simple. You just change the color. If you select the text, change it up here, change it in your character panel. With this script, I always do capital on the first letter and lowercase on the rest. Very simple. Let's see. Last name, pretty self-explanatory. You might want to change the size or position if you have a really long name. You don't want it running off of the canvas, but you can adjust that as needed. And then of course we've got our senior, junior, sophomore, freshman. If you use automation, you might just be using one of these layers. If you do it manually, you can turn on which one that you want to use. Let's see. That's pretty much it. That's pretty simple. The last thing is kind of a color grading option. I also do this often. So this is a color lookup. It's a warm contrast, and I only have it at 7%. And so if you turn it off, you can see it just barely affects it. So if I were to increase it, just so you could kind of get a better idea of the effect, it just depends on if you want a little extra warmth and a little extra contrast. So if I were to go back to what it looked like when you open it, it's very subtle, but you can see it adds a little saturation, a little warmth, and a little bit of contrast. Come back here, you can see what we've done. So, I don't know. I rattled through all of that, but hopefully it all made sense and covered everything you might need to know. We can touch on the team version quickly. There's not a whole lot that is different It does have a softball option, so this circle represents the pitcher's mound, which is different in baseball. So if you want baseball, you can turn this on. It's just turf with a solid white line. In fact, if you open the Smart Object, it's a photo I took at a local baseball field. But as cool as this looks, and I wish you could just use it for both sports, somebody may notice that, like, hey, that's a softball pitcher's mound. So you've got options for both. Let's see, everything else is the same there. Feet or no feet, I have this layer mask on the bottom row. So I've got it set up for rows. So you've got your bottom row, you've got your middle text, and then you've got your upper row. And so again, you can adjust these gradient masks if you need to. With this one, turn it on, and if you do that, like we talked about with the vertical or individual, you want to turn off the playing surface, and then you want to also turn off the balls here. And then you would probably scale and position these a little differently. So I might make them a little bigger, bring them a little further down. You can always move this entire text, move it around, lower. You could bring this upper row down a little bit, but you can fine tune and adjust it however you need to. And that is it. So I don't know, I kind of feel like I stumbled my way through this one, but hopefully, like I said earlier, it made sense and covered everything that you might need to know. If there is anything that I didn't cover, or if you still have questions, need help, happy to help anytime I can. Shoot me an email, don@thirdcreative.com. I will get back to you as quick as I can, sometimes quicker than others, but that is all I have for this one. Time to move on to the next one. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, we'll see you.